Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Todd Coons. Thanks for showing up, watching another video. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you've never been here before, thanks for clicking on the video. If you're a longtime subscriber, welcome back. Love you guys. Today we're going to do something kind of cool. I have gotten a golden opportunity to play with the Canon R5 II. Not a Canon shooter. I switched from Canon a while back. I switched to Fuji, but I got like I said, an amazing opportunity to play with this thing. So we're going to put it through some paces in the studio. And I'm going to do something a little bit different because I'm guessing that there are 15,000 other YouTube channels reviewing this camera. So I'm going to do it a little bit different. There's no reason to come here to a guy who doesn't even shoot with Canon anymore and try to figure out what I think of the camera. I'm going to put it head to head with my workhorse, which is the Fuji X-T4. It's actually doing the video right now. And I've got an 80mm macro for my Fuji, and I've got the 100mm macro for the Canon, two very similar lenses. We're going to do the same shot with both cameras, and I know it's kind of an unfair fight. This is a 45 megapixel full frame. The X-T4 crop sensor, 26 megapixels. It's not really a fair fight. They're out of, two different weight classes. But my point of this video is to talk about whether or not you need something of this magnitude. Because let's be honest, $4,300 camera compared to a $1,600 or $1,700 camera, there's a big difference in price. The lenses get expensive as well. So even though this camera is like the latest, greatest powerhouse for Canon, I've got an X-T4 that is my main work camera that I do all my professional work with. I thought it might be kind of fun to put the two head to head and see how they do. Now I know what a lot of people might be thinking, that this is really a crazy comparison. The two cameras are very different, and they are. However, again, the reason I'm doing it is because the X-T4 is the camera that I do all my professional work with. So if you've never watched my channel before, let me tell you that I do a lot of advertising photography. I shoot for a lot of restaurants. I do some real estate stuff. I do a lot of stock photography and a lot of portraiture, that kind of thing as well. And the X-T4, a crop sensor 26 megapixel camera, has been the workhorse for the last several years. So the reason I'm comparing the two is just because I'm taking my camera that does all my heavy lifting, if you will, and comparing it to Canon's latest, greatest. Now, from the very beginning, before I've even taken the body cap off this camera, I'm going to tell you this camera is probably better. A bigger sensor, higher megapixels, latest, greatest technology. I'm guessing this camera will probably produce a greater image. However, the big point of doing this video is, number one, I just want to play with it. I got this opportunity to play with it, so let's play with it. But I also want to kind of see, is it necessary to go to this level? Now, outside of 45 megapixels, I'm not going to get into the video specs. I'm not really a video guy. The extent of my video is creating these YouTube videos. I don't do video professionally for the most part. Occasionally somebody will ask me to do something, but it's very limited. So all the great things that this thing does video-wise, I'm really probably not going to talk too much about it in this video. I'm going to compare it as a still camera, and today we're going to be in the studio. I'm going to come up with something here in the house to create a pretty product in-studio shot. And we'll put the two cameras to the test. So I need to go get creative and set up a shot. So one thing I want to point out, which is kind of interesting from a gear standpoint, is I'm breaking out my old school studio lights that I have had for 25 years maybe. Got the old power pack. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the brand Norman. Norman used to be one of the big players in the lighting business. Now my system here was kind of one of the cheaper ones. They had much bigger packs, 1200 watt second packs, 2400 watt second packs. And the way it works is you've got the power pack and then you've got three places to plug your lights in, and different amounts of power come out of each plug, and not near as controllable as today's lights when you can dial in by thirds of stops or even tenths of stops. But you can see these guys have had some mileage on them. Look at how the flash tube is intact, but there's no modeling light left, and the glass on the outside, yeah, I dropped it along the way somewhere. In fact, out of my 3 lights, only one of them is still intact. Modeling light, flash tube, and then the glass that's on the outside. This third one, yeah, it's in as bad a shape as the first one I showed you. However, it has a modeling light. Believe it or not, all 3 of them have working flash tubes, so all 3 of them work. So I've just never replaced either the modeling light or the glass on the outside. Yeah, they've taken a couple of tumbles, but we're going to use them today because I don't have a Godox trigger for the Canon, and I just wanted to make it fair. I didn't want to have any advantages because my Godox lights are meant for Fuji. These are neutral. I've got a neutral Ellen chrome trigger that should work on both cameras and just keep the whole lighting end of it just as fair and balanced and equal as we can. So I broke out the old school lights and we're going to get those set up. One thing I like about my studio lights, far more than the Godox lights, is the power of the modeling light. If you can see, they're on, and I mean, that set is just really lit up with much stronger, much more powerful modeling lights. So I can see what I'm doing before the flash ever goes off. The Godox has modeling lights, they're just not as efficient. Plus being that the Godox lights that I have are battery operated, I don't use the modeling lights near as much because I don't want to wear the battery out. Now if I was doing some high-end, all-day client shoot in the studio, I would either have multiple batteries or use lights that plug in that have efficient modeling lights. But if you notice, I've got cords all over the place down here, plugging in the pack, plugging the lights into the pack itself. And that's just a pain in the rear, but the benefit is the more power, number one. I'm going to have a little bit more power, but I'm also going to have these great modeling lights. So just wanted to point that out. I kind of got the lighting the way I wanted to do it. If you remember correctly, I did the light coming through that window on a July 4th shoot just recently. Loved that idea, so we're going to kind of mimic that again. I'm shooting an old camera that I have sitting on my shelf here in the studio, and I'm going to come up with a bunch of antique props to put around it and create something neat. So I think the initial setup is there, and I just need to prop it, make it look good. And we're going to start with the Fuji because I know this camera a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to get a meter reading, and I'm setting my ISO at 200. The Fuji only goes down to 160 as a minimum. I'm guessing the Canon will go down to 100, but I'm going to set it at 200 so they're both the same. I guess I could do 160 and just set the... Let's do that. Canon at 160, this at 160. So let's change the ISO on the meter to 160 and get a meter reading. I'm going to do my best to point this dome of this meter. How am I going to do this? I'm going to hold the dome of the meter towards the main light and kind of shield it from that backlight. Okay, here we go. Wow, 32.5. That surprises me actually, but I'm going to take a test shot. The lowest my aperture goes on my Fuji is f22, but let's shoot one at 22, see where we're at. I'm hoping that the meter is playing tricks with me a little bit, and let's see where we're at here. Okay, f22, ISO 160. Oh yeah, f22. That actually looks like a pretty good exposure for the main light. Good place to start. Great deal of depth of field there, so not sure I'm loving that because that Kodak box in the back is probably much too prominent. I'm going to take a quick break in the middle of this video and thank Spartan Photo here in Spartanburg. These guys are fantastic, and they are the ones that let me use the R5 Mark II today. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So big shout out to them. Their website, SpartanPhotoCenter.com. They ship across the country, all kinds of stuff they do here. If you have any photo needs, I know everybody loves to go to B&H, but check out Spartan Photo. They've got a lot of great stuff, great people that work here. There's the store. Absolutely love these guys. They're fantastic. Thank you very much for letting me take this camera out, and yeah, check them out, guys. Okay, I just figured something out, that backlight was not going off. It was the modeling light was on, but it was not firing. So I lied to you when I said all three lights work. The one doesn't seem to be working. So I've replaced that light with one of the other ones that is broken, but the flash tube is there. It doesn't have a modeling light in it, and I could switch the modeling lights, but the modeling light was very hot. I didn't want to touch it just yet. So I'm going to take another meter reading because now both lights are popping. And now it's reading 22.5. So why only one light was reading 32.5? Because the way I've got it set up, it shouldn't have done that, but it did. I don't know. So it may be time to retire this old lighting system. This pack might be on its last legs. We've done a lot of jobs. We've made a lot of money with these lights, so I can't complain. 22.5. Let me shoot another one with both lights firing, but let me show you first why I figured out that backlight wasn't going off. So there's the last image I took. 22.5 was fairly properly exposed for that main light, but if you notice, there's no light coming in from behind. So let's do another one here. Yeah, now we've got some backlight going. So, all right, much better. I think I'm going to put a warming gel on that backlight. I want it to look like early morning sun coming through. Work a little bit on the propping. And I think I'm going to move the main subject forward so we create a little bit more depth of field. And then we're going to be close to a final image, and then we'll get into what this whole video is about, comparing the two cameras, the R5 Mark II with my trusted X-T4. Gels hanging on that light. Got an amber gel and a yellow gel. I don't know why I didn't grab those, but I did. Okay, here's the final shot. Main light over here with the softbox. This black card is keeping the light from spilling onto the back of the set. Got it all propped. I've got one little mirror here that is putting some reflections into the front of the camera. I added some glasses just to kind of have the light from the back come in. A couple extra props. I ended up going with the yellow and amber, and then I actually put a red gel down below too. Just getting crazy with it, I guess. I moved the whole set a little bit forward, moved the camera in a little bit tighter, just to throw the depth of field a little bit more out. Let me put this in here, and let's take this final shot. Manual focus. And there is the final image. I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, I can live with that. Okay, so that's the Fuji version of it. I ended up being at f/20, ISO 160. I'm going to switch over to the Canon, do the exact same shot, and we will compare the two. Okay, so I've got the camera set up, ISO 160, f/20, 125th of a second, daylight balanced. I think everything is set up just the same. Now, I was a Canon shooter for a long time. I shot with a 5D for probably 15 years. The menus are very similar, so it wasn't too crazy getting into the menus, being that I haven't been in Canon for a while. Certainly, they're different and there's more to it. But the learning curve on that part of it was fine. The menus in the Canon are nice. They're not so convoluted that they're hard to navigate. The fact that this is a touch screen and you can easily jump around on it, super nice. One of the things I'm not exactly sure if you notice how dark it is in there, because the ambient light is so low. Gonna have to figure that out, but let's get the same shot or as similar to it as we can. Okay, I don't know if you can see that very well. Let's see. I can zoom in here. So I need to get the other camera and just see if I've cropped it similar. It's close to the same right there. You know, exposure and everything looks very similar. I think the oranges seem more punchy, at least on this back screen. So the colors seem maybe a little bit different. Let me grab the other camera and look just to compare. Canon on the right. Fuji on the left. I think my cropping looks very similar. My Fuji looks a little greener, maybe. It might be just a white balance issue, but... All right, I think we're good enough. We'll bring them into the computer. That's going to be the true test. Okay, guys, I have to admit something to you because I think I just figured something out. With the Canon image, I had to shoot it in JPEG, knowing that my version of Photoshop, which is outdated because my computer is very outdated, would not be able to read the raw image. So now that I'm thinking about it, this is the Fuji image, by the way. This is the Canon image, which is more contrasty, but my guess is that because it's a JPEG, the camera did some processing to it. So because it processed, it's probably not quite as flat as a raw image would be. For what that's worth, I'm going to admit that to you. I did it, had to do it. I just wouldn't have been able to read the raw image with my software. But the Fuji image is a raw image, so I don't know if that makes it an unfair fight. It probably wasn't an unfair fight in the other direction to begin with. So we're going to process these. I think with the Fuji image, we can give it a little contrast. I definitely think it looks a little on the green side. And with the Canon image, I think we can bring the exposure up just a little bit. Maybe bring the shadows up just a little bit too. So there's Canon, there's Fuji. Okay, so I think the processing part of it is very similar there. I'm going to output them and then I'll show you the final results. I'll show you the entire image and then I'll show you zoomed in probably just to the front part of this camera so we can see how much better 45 megapixel full frame is, but it's going to be interesting to see this. So let's export these. All right, guys, there you go. What did you think? Really liked this camera. Obviously, it is a phenomenal camera. I don't have anything bad to say about it at all. The image was beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I've got nothing negative to say about it. I would have to kind of get used to where the dials are again. They're a little bit different, but that's just a matter of repetition and using it. It was a very easy camera to just pick up and get back into Canon and use it. No problems there. The menus, super easy to navigate. Get it set up the way I wanted it to set up. Yeah, totally fine with all of that. Now, as far as the images are concerned, because my point of this video was not to review a camera that is obviously super nice, but was to compare it to my workhorse, which is the X-T4, which is back to recording me talk right now. The R5 Mark II was definitely sharper and clearer when I zoomed way in. No doubt. Now, 45 megapixels compared to 26, it should be sharper, right? No question there. The question is it worth the $4,300 price tag compared to a $1,700 price tag for the X-T4, which you can actually get the X-T5 for $1,700 now. So you're talking more than double the price to buy this camera body to get the Fuji camera body. is the extra clarity that much better? Now, let's be honest, I'm comparing it to the X-T4, which is 26 megapixels, but for the same price, basically, you can get the X-T5, which is 40 megapixels. That camera would probably, you know, hold up next to the R5 even better. You know, this video is about my X-T4. R5, definitely clear when you start zooming in, but it wasn't a lot. I was pleasantly surprised that my Fuji held up as well as it did. I knew it would look really sharp. I've been using it for several years. I've zoomed in really tight on a lot of things. It does a phenomenal job. So R5, definitely better. Phenomenal camera. Super excited that I got to play with it. I wish I had it longer. Got to play with it in the studio, which you know is my favorite place to be. I love being in the studio and creating. But in terms of comparing it to the workhorse that I use all the time now, again, Fuji X-T4, my X-T4 held up really well next to the brand new Canon R5 II, even though it's a phenomenal camera. Personally, I have a hard time justifying that much more cost. Even if I was in the Canon system, I probably wouldn't update just because it's such an expensive camera. Although it is pretty. It really is a pretty camera. But as I've showed you guys the images side by side, zoomed in a couple of times, let me know what you think. Give me your thoughts. I'm sure I skipped over a bunch of stuff. I didn't want to be an R5 II review guy showing you all the little greatest bells and whistles. I just wanted to put it into action in what I do for a living and kind of compare it. So let me know what you think. Leave me any comments, questions, or complaints. As always, if you haven't subscribed, I would appreciate you if you would consider subscribing. Leave me a thumbs up. And as always, guys, I'll see you in the next video.